Hello and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show, the only podcast in real estate investing that teaches what you need to know to find and flip deals right now. Wow. Break free the chains that are holding you back and join us on this episode with Jason Lucchese.
Hey, what's going on? It's Jason Lucchese and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show. I am so excited that you are here with us right now. Got my good friend and business partner, Michael Bretthauer, a.k.a. The Myth, joining us. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Jason. It's good to be here and glad to be on for the continuation of what we've been talking about.
Absolutely. If you guys did not catch last week's episode, make sure you check that out because we were covering some asset manager stuff with being able to find and flip deals that are in bulk. And we're doing that continuation on this episode right here, right now. We've done a lot of great episodes leading up to this, but one of the things that we really haven't covered in full detail is finding these bulk packages. And one of the things that we're seeing in today's market is the big market shift, the correction that's happening. Now, again, like I said on last week's episode, we don't have a crystal ball or anything like that. We don't have some 1-900 number that you could call and we'll feed you your tarot card reading or anything like that. But what we want to discuss on today's episode is how you could find, your credit unions, your banks, and all that type of stuff. So you could start really finding bulk packages. Either they contain properties, they contain notes, or maybe they can, combine a combination of that. And Mike, what have you been kind of, hearing from our, not just our students, but other people that are in our free Asset Manager Millions group on Facebook? What's kind of been the feedback as far as, the opportunity that we're seeing?
The feedback's been really kind of surprising, in a matter of fact. I want to say positively surprising, I should say. That'd be a good way to put it, because when people have their eyes, it seems like some of them are having their eyes open to the fact that, like, oh wow, there's this really great resource of deals that's not as hard to get a hold of as I thought. I think that's kind of the consensus. Is the majority is just more surprised as to how easy it is. I don't want to say easy. That's a word I don't want to say. I don't want to use. Simple. There you go. How simple it is to actually do it and how anybody can really do it.
Yeah, because let's face it, things can be simple, but they can be hard to execute. Nothing's easy as an entrepreneur. But
the thing was, it's like, wow, all I have to do is follow a certain guideline, a certain level of steps. It's that simple.
Yeah, we put the milestones for what you should do all the way into the last milestone. So we had first milestone all the way until last milestone and everything in between for being able to, really find the right people, either it be at banks, credit unions, hedge funds, private equity firms, whatever it may be. We wanted to give you that information. And if you would like to check it out, it's in our group on Facebook. It's absolutely free. It's called Asset Manager Millions. So check that out, but not right now. Make sure you listen to the rest of this episode. And what we wanted to really kind of cover with you is, finding the right people, finding those right people. And one of the sources that we use with our folks is using a site called BauerFinancial.com. And that's spelled BauerFinancial.com, BauerFinancial.com. And it's a website that you could find banks and credit unions at, specifically within the state that you're wanting to do business in. The great thing with what we do as far as, wholesaling bulk properties and bulk notes is it could be done completely virtual.
Yeah, and there people ask, well, where do I start? Where do I start? Right there. The BauerFinancial.com website is a great place to start. When you're like, well, where do I even find an asset manager to connect with? I live in this area. I don't even know where to look. I just I see a whole bunch of stuff online. How do I start? Bauer Financial is like one of those really quick and easy solutions. You go on there, you find a bank, and then she's like, all right, well, I have a bank name, I have a location. Now I just need to find the person at this bank, and it goes to the next step.
Yeah, we go about it in a way to where we can use Google, we can use Facebook, we can use LinkedIn for finding people that work specifically at that bank or credit union. And the main banks that we're wanting to find and credit unions are going to be the ones that are operating at the state level or the regional level. You don't want to work with the top 25, even the top 30 banks, because they're not going to want to talk with you unless you have, a 9-figure proof of funds letter, which most people do not have. The smaller banks, the mom and pop places, they're going to want to talk to you, and they're not going to want to ask for an upfront proof of funds letter, which is really cool, or what's called an LOI, letter of intent. You could take a look at what's called a sanitized version of a list. So meaning that they've already blocked out the address, and it's totally cool. You could find out which zip codes you want once you receive a list from one of these individuals. And then from there, you could start, taking a look at the ones that you want. And then at that point, you could provide a letter of intent and a proof of funds letter. And if you're wondering where to find a proof of funds letter, we have that information located within the Asset Manager Millions group on Facebook. So highly encourage you to check it out over there, because we explain it a little bit more in detail, since we don't have a huge amount of time to be sharing it with you.
That was another question people had too. It's like, well, how do I get a proof of funds for when an asset manager? Because a lot of them are going to ask, hey, send me a proof of funds, a letter of intent. Where do I even get that? It's a great resource to have in your back pocket for when you need it.
Yeah, and the approaches that we have, especially for reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn, is very casual, laid back. We want everything to be personal. So if we're not connected with them on LinkedIn, we want to send like a brief message over to them. If let's just say their first name is Mike, I'm going to say, hi, Mike. My name's Jason Lucchese. We have a mutual contact. If we have a mutual contact, or if you're a member of a group, you could say the group. And it's just being more personal with them, and letting folks know how we are connected with them, because believe it or not, there's over 4 million asset managers on LinkedIn alone. So it presents a huge opportunity, especially with the correction that's going on, the shift that's going on right now. It's allowing you to get your foot in the door, because right now is the best time to get your foot in the door. And then also you want to obviously get fully in the door. So what we want to talk about is the messaging that you need to do in order for you to get that initial foot in the door. And that is, having a message come across, being personal in your invitation to talk to people on LinkedIn. And once you get that invitation from that person and you're able to connect with them, Mike, what opens up the door at that point? Once you've actually gained a connection from somebody, what's all the information that you get once that person's accepted?
Well, you pretty much get everything you need to reach out to them in any way you can think. I mean, you get their phone number, that opens up to you. You get their email as a way to reach out to them. You get opened up into being able to reach out to them directly through LinkedIn. So there's 3 open lines of communication right there. And quite honestly, really the only 3 you really honestly need.
Yeah, and repeat those again for folks.
You get the phone number, the email, and then you get the LinkedIn permission to message them directly.
That right there is a huge golden nugget drop right there, that if you are not on LinkedIn actively, you need to be actively on LinkedIn, because when you make a connection with somebody, and this happens all the time, we just connected with some folks at, some banks and some servicing companies. We talked about last week, Fannie and Freddie, that we connected with. We connected with folks at Bayview Financial. We've connected with local banks, regional banks, whatever it may be. Once you connect with those individuals on LinkedIn, it's tremendous. It is huge, because most of the time you're going to get their cell phone number. So you're not going to get a work number, because when I was just getting started in this, what I did is LinkedIn and Facebook they weren't even big at the time. So what I'd have to do is I would call the 800 number. I would be on the phone, and it would end up taking, 2-3 hours for them to tell me that we don't have anybody that you could talk to. They would basically just circle me around. Basically like you're calling the IRS. You're on the phone with the IRS waiting to talk to somebody for an hour or 2. And then when you finally get somebody to say something, you get all excited, and then just for them to basically pop your balloon and
they are very good. They are very good at letting the air out of your sails, or whatever the saying goes. Exactly. Right down.
So you get the contact information, which is huge, and then it's all about next step from there, which we talk in the milestones, but we'll talk about it right here. Is once you get that and you could call them, it's just all about having a simple conversation with them. It's like saying, hey, this is Jason. We recently connected on LinkedIn. I wanted to personally reach out to you, say thanks, and wanted to see if you had 5 minutes to chat. And if they do, that's great. You're allowing yourself to have a chat with them. And then the conversation really it goes like this. Main reason for why I wanted to reach out to you is I own an investment company here in Indianapolis. We're looking at acquiring certain assets, across the country. If that's what you're doing, if you're wanting to buy across the country, great. If not, if you're wanting to stick to, your state or whatnot, then you want to be specific about that. So we could say, I own a real estate investment company here in Indianapolis. We're acquiring properties and notes across the state. And I wanted to reach out to you because we have some acquisition capital available. We've got it ready for deployment. So I just wanted to reach out to you, see if you might have anything that we could take a look at. And then it goes from there.
Right. They might start asking you questions like, great, Jason, great. Well, I do have some assets. We do have some stuff. What are you looking for?
Yeah, exactly. And, most of the time, what they're going to ask, what are you looking for? We are always looking for their properties and notes. We love notes. And next week we've got an amazing episode where we're going to actually introduce you to Larry and Mariska. They're part of the team and they're awesome when it comes to notes. We're going to be sharing that with you. That episode is going to be amazing. So make sure you mark your calendars down for next Tuesday as well. But for the most part, we're looking for the properties that they have and the notes. Now, are you going to come across somebody that has something available for you all the time? No, but it goes to show, like anything else, you've got to be willing to put in the time. You've got to be willing to put in the effort. You've got to talk to several individuals before you find gold.
It's actually more often than not, they're not going to have something that you can really work with. That's going to be what happens more times than they give you something and it's like, wow, here's something on this list I can actually work with. They're always going to, not always, but most of them will give you a list of something or maybe a couple of properties, but it doesn't always mean it's something that you can work with. Maybe it might work for some investor somewhere. And if you have a good, JV list built up or a good buyers list built up or whatever, it's just a really good network. And if you've listened to our other podcast episodes, we've talked about marketing and creating a network. Potentially you could do something with that kind of a deal. But for the most part, it's just going to be, okay, you know what? This is not something I'm looking for right now. Please keep in mind when you get something else, I am looking to buy, like I said, I do have cash, ready to go. And then you just keep my mark there, my mic there. You just keep the open line of communication from there. You just every once in a while hit them up. You've got the different lines to communicate with them with. If you got their email, if they, from LinkedIn, once you've made that connection, you can drop that into your email MailChimp. I think we've talked about that last week. You can drop them into your MailChimp. And then it's just auto fire at there, autopilot at that point, just keeping your name and your contact info in the back of their mind, just, hey, I saw this great article on LinkedIn or on Google. It's related to something to do in this area that we're doing business in. Just thought I might share it with you. I thought you might find it interesting. Great. Whether, they read it or not, it's not really important. The only important thing is you sent them something valuable and they saw that. That's really all that's important. They don't have to read the email, because then when it comes to the point that they have something valuable, they're going to remember the person that's been sending them value all this time since you made that connection. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here.
No, it's huge, man. And you brought up MailChimp and we talked about Google Alerts briefly last week, and that's huge. You have to have that set up, especially if you want to keep your name in front of your private lenders, your cash buyers, just your community of who you're wanting to do business with. It's huge. If you're wanting to create, Facebook groups or anything like that, you could share content in there, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't have any content to share. That's the way to do it. But let's talk about next steps. After you've had this brief conversation with, let's just say it's an asset manager or it's a C-level individual. Maybe it's a vice president at, a bank or a credit union. We haven't even touched on hedge funds yet. So you get this conversation going and they say, yeah, we actually do. You get the yes. You don't want to obviously let them know the, enthusiasm or the excitement that you have right then and there. You obviously want to hold it back and be like, okay, great. What do you have available? So you want to have something, that's not like crazy over the top with your response. You obviously want to hold in those emotions, because once you finally hear the yes, And what I wanted to also say too, Mike, is a lot of people are going to hear no's, and a lot of the people that hear the no's, they get discouraged. That's good for you because they end up getting out of the business, and it leaves Pandora's box still allowing you to go and open it, and then the floodgates are open from there. So you've got to keep going regardless of what somebody says. You know how many times I've heard no since I've gotten started doing sales? I've heard a lot of no's, more than yeses.
You know, it's like that song that I think Imagine Dragons, you really like whatever it takes. You just got to keep plugging away until finally one's like, yeah, I've got something and it makes sense. And then you're on to that next step of, okay, well, great. Now sending me either the sanitized version of the list, or they're asking you for to sign a NCND just to
take a look at the
just to
unsanitized
list.
Yeah.
That's where I was going. Just send you that, which is even better if they're going to go ahead and send you that. And I've always been asked, that's another question that gets asked quite a bit. Hey, they're asking me to sign this agreement to, basically saying I'm not going to share this with other people. What should I do? Well, sign it so you can take a look at the list of assets and see if there's anything you can work with. My advice has always been like, listen, I'm not an attorney, but whenever I sign something, I read what it says. And if I sign it, I basically just follow along with what I've agreed to do. So if it says, do not share this list, do not do this, do not do that, then that's what I do. That's the best advice I could give.
Exactly. And, let's just say at this point you get the list, you sign the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement.
I said NCND, didn't I?
Well, there's two different forms.
Right.
You've got a non-circumvent non-disclosure agreement, and you've got a non-disclosure agreement. So there's two. So Mike, you weren't wrong. there's two. So we take a look at it. Maybe they send you over 20 properties. No notes, because we're going to cover notes next week. So let's just talk about, you get properties. And there's, you could pick them up for a decent song. Let's just say you find two properties on there that you like, and you pick them up at like 50 cents on the dollar. What do we do at that point, Mike? We're wanting to reach out to our buyers once we get these under contract from the asset manager. At this point, we've got two deals, and we're not talking about the bulk deals that we get at this point. I don't want to overwhelm people. But there's really not anything to be overwhelmed about, because we take a look at 30 or 40 packages, property packages, and it's the same evaluation process that you would give for one property. And we could do this completely virtual. So let's just say we take a look at these two properties and we're getting them at 50 cents on the dollar. Well, most people right now in today's market, if they have something brand new that comes up, it's not on the MLS, it's not on Zillow, it's not on Redfin, do you think they're going to be hungry to take a look at your deal? If you're selling it, let's just say you get each deal at $50,000, and let's just say it's valued at $100,000, and it may need some minimal amounts of work. Do you think you're going to be able to quickly wholesale both of those deals for $60,000 each, making you $20,000 in wholesale profits? What do you think on that, Mike?
On 60 cents on the dollar, I would be all over that right now. As an investor here in Indy, if somebody was like, yeah, I've got two 60 cent on the dollar properties for you, I'd just be like, dude, do not tell anybody else. All right. Just, where are you right now? Digital sign me. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. This is my address. Go ahead and send it to me. I want them.
Here's my non-refundable deposit to show you how serious I am.
Here's my...
they're going to be like, hey, here's $4,000 in non-refundable earnest money.
Seriously. I mean, seriously, what kind of return are you talking about here?
Joking about it. Like, if you've got serious properties, it's $2,000 on each one, non-refundable, and you're going to make a substantial amount of money. And most folks are probably wondering, well, what about deed restrictions from the bank? Well, if you're dealing with the small banks that we recommend, and you can check it out in the Asset Manager Millions group on Facebook, you're not going to have deed restrictions.
No.
You get deed restrictions when you're dealing with the large banks like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, SunTrust. You'll get deed restrictions with them, but with the smaller mom and pop banks, the state and regional banks, you don't have to worry about that garbage. You could turn around and sell them same day if you wanted to. Most of the time we are doing same day. If you don't have the funds yourself to take them down, just use a transactional funder. If you need a good recommendation, come join us in the group. But at that point, you're selling off two properties. that it literally took you just some phone calls to make. You didn't have to leave the comfort of your own home. You just found them using the milestones that we've discussed, and you found them on LinkedIn, you called them, and now you've got these deals, and you don't even have to go to the title company at this point. You can get a wire.
Yeah, you really need to paint the picture a little bit more, because I think some people don't quite understand. It's like, yeah, you didn't have to do a whole bunch. Not only that, but maybe you did this when you got home from work at the end of the day. You made a few, you made 15, you spent a couple of hours. I'm not going to make it. Yeah, I really want to paint the picture right. You spent a couple of hours every day after the end of the workday, going on LinkedIn and making your connections. You really gave it a go. But then after a couple of weeks, you finally set up that phone call to talk to the person. So you did that on your lunch break or whatever during the day. You just had that quick conversation. The rest of the stuff you've been doing offline in the evening time. And at the end of that 2 weeks, you close, or maybe at the end of that month or whatever, you close a couple of deals. Maybe not, within your first month. It might take a little bit, but you close $20,000 at the end of that. How much more validation would you need to be like, man, if I quit my job and I did this all day, how much could I be making?
No, it's so true. Like with that package that I was giving you as an example, they send you a 20 property package. Let's turn up the heat a little bit on this.
Ooh.
Let's just say you make offers on 10 of those properties and you're able to get them for the same discounts. We're talking about
or more for that much.
I know. So let's just say 10 properties, $10,000 each. That's $100,000. And let's just say you got these all done within a 30-day period and you made $100,000. Would that be something that would excite you? Would you be like, would that be the validation like Mike was just talking about? Would that be the validation that you would need? Because those packages are out there. They're out there. They're out there with properties. They're out there with notes. We've got amazing things coming up that we want to share with you guys. And next week, we're going to be talking about notes. Like a lot of people they've got so much fear when it comes to notes, and you don't need to have that fear because notes are actually really simple. They're simple. And they're very easy to get done from a standpoint of making money or having cash flow coming in every single month. And I know I'm rambling here, but Mike, you were going to say something?
No, I really want to say, what if you could also be a part of a group where you could not only, have that expandability to reach out to those types of people, but have the expandability to be able to snatch up and say yes to those types of properties or more of those types of properties because you're involved with a group or a community of investors that has expanded your buyers list, expanded your ability to grow, not only with the capital you have to deploy, but where you can deploy it.
No, absolutely, man. It's huge. The opportunity that we're seeing right now, mainly because of we see the shift happening, the correction happening, and we're jumping on the ball before it's even really getting fully rolled because it's rolling, but it hasn't picked up the speed yet, which is meaning that you're hopping in. Like, let's just say you picked up Amazon stock 10 years ago. I'm not saying it's going to be quite as big as that. And Mike's given me the evil eyes because he did tell me to get the Amazon stock 10 years ago. Same with Tesla. He told me to get the Tesla stock before it skyrocketed. And I didn't. So I'm telling you guys right now, this is a huge opportunity to get in. We've got an event coming up the end of July. Would love to have you there. It's limited availability because we don't want it to be like hundreds or even thousands of people. We want you to come because we want to give you individual attention so that at the end of the 3 days, it's not just like, oh, well, that was great. I got to sit around and, I got to do this and that, but it's going to be completely opposite. We're seeing distressed assets being key right now. And that's what we're going to be discussing as far as how to do bulk packages, how to do bulk notes, how to get cash flow. Even if you don't have your own cash, we're going to talk about how to find private money, how to structure private money. If you would like to have more information on what we're going to be covering in detail, send me an email. It's jluchesivip@gmail.com. So that's jluchesivip@gmail.com and put in the subject line Indianapolis because that's where it's going to be. So it's going to be here in Indianapolis, Mike and I's hometown. We're going to introduce you to our team next week, Larry and Mariska. And we also have a great amount of team. There's not going to be any outside speakers besides my attorney. And you're going to want to hear exactly what he has to say because it's going to be huge. And we've got limited seats. We're already starting to fill up with some people. So if you email us and we respond back saying, hey, we don't have any availability, we're literally, it's a hard cut. We can't have a certain amount because I've made reservations for a small amount because we want to make sure that the people that come are getting exactly what they want and more. So that's what we want. Mike, is there anything that you want to share?
It's like it's like they always saying, or that saying always goes, like you don't want to miss the opportunity, or like you see things ahead of time. Hindsight's 2020. All these kind of adages or sayings goes. We're talking about being in front of the ball before it gets rolling because we saw the ball roll and smash through everything it did back when it did the first time. So we, now we did hindsight. And we're like, well, we saw what was happening in the market when the ball was filling up with air and getting ready to plow through everybody down below. So we're at that point when we're like, well, let's not have hindsight be 2020 again. Let's let foresight be 2020. Let's really get in front of the ball, and we're just gonna grab everything as it comes down.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to come, obviously we've got the Facebook group. It's open. You could check out more of the milestones in detail. Those are there. You can check it out at the Asset Manager Millions group on Facebook. Just type that in and you could click join group, and we would love to have you in the group. We would even love to have you more so at the live event, meet you in person, share some great value with you so that you can start implementing this within your business right now in 2019. And then as we start going into 2020, I can't even believe it's going to be 2020 here.
Can you believe it?
It's nuts. The year's been going by so quickly, but this is going to set you up. You don't want to be a person that looks back at this episode a year from now, kicking yourself in the pants because you didn't execute. You didn't take action. And I'm not trying to be a car salesman here. That's the last thing I'd want to do. If you want to come, great. If you don't, I'm not going to pressure you into
just don't get mad when, next year you delete this episode because it hurts so much to hear us say, if you listen to this a year from now, don't get mad because it's going to happen. It's happening right now. If you go ahead and check the history books online and look at the marketing, what happened in real estate, it happened before. This practically the same way. Obviously it's not verbatim the same, but all the similar events. So
absolutely. So make sure if you do have questions about it, you could always just shoot me an email. It's JLuccasivip@gmail.com. So jlucasey@gmail.com. Or Mike, is there a way that they can call you?
So if you want to go ahead and call or leave a text message, you can go ahead and give us a call, 317-886-1400. If somebody's not able to pick up, just go ahead and leave us a text message. One of the greatest ways to get a hold of us as well is if you go to our website, there's a chat bot right there at the bottom that goes right to our support team. You can just type us a quick message, a quick question, and we can forward you right to the right person you need to be at.
Absolutely. This has been a really great episode. If you feel like we deserve it and you're on iTunes listening to this, leave us a 5-star review, drop us a comment, let us know what you enjoyed about this episode. Be ready for next week's episode. We're going to be continuing from the continuation of this episode to next week about notes. And if you don't know anything about notes, you're going to want to jot down notes because we've got some amazing information that we're going to be sharing. We're going to introduce you to Larry and Mariska. They're absolutely amazing, and they've been doing tons and tons of note deals, and we want to introduce you to them. So be ready for that episode. Mike, is there any final words you have?
No, take some notes on notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than that, have a great day. We'll talk to you later, my friends. Take care. Bye now.